In this video, I'm going to show you how to make 80% of your hamstring growth by training to grow muscle. Bodybuilders train with a hypertrophy style training that allows them to grow more muscle. And I'm going to teach you the techniques that they use so that you can alter your training style so you can grow more muscle. And if you don't know who I am, my name is Gabriel Redente. I've been training for over 5 years with this hypertrophy bodybuilding style training. I am working towards becoming a personal trainer to help people improve themselves and their lifting by training to put on muscle. The hamstring is made up of 3 muscles, and the hamstring is on the back of your thigh. The hamstring attaches at the hip bone and at the knee. It is responsible for bending your knee and for hinging your hip for things like bending over, squatting, and walking. By keeping your knees relatively straight and setting your hips back, imagine if you were sitting back in a chair, that will tighten your hamstring and put you in a position similar to an RDL or stiff leg deadlift. And if you do the opposite and you bend your heel to your butt, then that's gonna mimic the action of a ham curl. Some great exercises to grow your hamstrings are gonna be the RDL, and that's a really good one because it puts a lot of load under the stretch position of the exercise. Because it's a compound lift, you can also lift heavier, and it's generally pretty stable. And because it's a compound lift, it works a lot of muscles, which can be a big bang for your buck kind of exercise. Bulgarian split squats and lunges are also great for building your hamstrings. They're both unilateral exercises, and generally on unilateral exercises, if you really want to optimize everything for muscle growth, then you want to do one side and then have a 30 to 60 second rest so that you can be rested from the fatigue and exhaustion from the first set so you can give your all on the second set. But if you don't have time, it's not a huge deal if you just go from one side to the other side. Lunges and Bulgarian split squats are great for the hamstring. However, when you set them up, you want your leading leg, your front leg, your working leg to be farther away from you, which requires your hip to hinge more. The hamstring will be put through more range of motion and more stretch, which is going to be more beneficial for growing muscle. And also, unilateral exercises can be good if you have muscle imbalances, because working the weak side first and then going to the stronger side, you just match the stronger side to the same reps you did on the weaker side, and eventually over time they'll balance out. The ham curl, it's very easy to progressively overload because it's a machine and it has an even resistance curve, so the same intensity is throughout the entire exercise. And good mornings. Good mornings are basically if you were to do an RDL with a barbell on your back. Basically, if RDLs and squat were to mix, that's what a good morning is. So you set up with the barbell in a squat position, high bar, low bar, doesn't matter, and then you do the motion of an RDL and you set your hips back, try to keep your chest up, keep your back nice and neutral. You want to feel a deep stretch in your hamstrings, be controlled, slow on the way down, and then once you reach that deep stretch where it might even be slightly painful, then you want to come back up. And at that point, you don't want to go any deeper. So instead of full range of motion per se, you want to reach that deep stretch and then come back up. Nordic ham curls. Nordic ham curls are interesting. I've never done them in a program, but I've read 2 studies about them, and when compared to like 5 or 6 other hamstring exercises, the Nordic hamstring curl has the most activation of the hamstring muscle in both the eccentric and concentric phases of the range of motion, which is interesting. Doesn't necessarily mean it's far better for growing muscle, because there are more factors to growing muscle than just muscle activation. To optimize for growing muscle, each exercise has to be pushed close to failure. Within 2 to 3 reps of failure is ideal. To know if you're anywhere close to failure, you have to eventually hit failure. So you have to actually once in a while actually go complete technical failure to actually know where failure is. Because if you just never go to failure, then you can guess where it is, but you don't know if that's actually your max capacity, or if you're just convincing yourself that you're working out intensely and that you're 2 reps from failure. In reality, more like 6 reps from it, and in that case, you're leaving a lot of gains on the table. Along with intensity is volume. the amount of sets you do per week for a single muscle group, in this case the hamstring, will play a decent factor in how much muscle you can actually grow. In general, you want to have about 6 to 15 sets per muscle group to grow that muscle. And to do that, the way I'm going to explain it is, let's imagine you have 100 sets per week, and that's your budget of sets for how many sets you can do for the entire week for every muscle group. And so you have to dole out and give certain exercises the appropriate amount of sets to grow, while other exercises can't have as many sets because you only have a limited amount of sets to begin with. In general, to grow muscle, the appropriate amount of volume will depend on the muscle's size and propensity for growth, which will mostly come down to genetics. Everyone is going to be a little bit different for how much volume and intensity it takes for a single muscle to grow. So in general, because you have a budget of how many sets you can do in a single week, the most optimal approach is to have priority muscles. So have 1 to 3 muscles that you consider priority muscles. Those are the ones that you give more attention to and that you want to focus on and grow in this priority phase. And the goal here is to grow these 3 muscles and then have all the other muscles either grow slowly or be maintained. And for smaller muscle groups like your calf, your bicep, your tricep, your abs, these muscle groups, because they're smaller, don't require as much attention, and because they get hit during a lot of compound movements, don't even need as much isolation exercises to begin with. For the bigger muscle groups like quads, hamstring, glutes, chest, back, those are all very large muscle groups and they get hit a lot during compound movements, but they also have a large benefit when hit in isolation exercises because they can take a lot more volume. And so for those big 5, 6 muscle groups, it's good to pick 1 to 3 of those to have as your prioritization muscles. But if you find that for aesthetics, you want to bring up a lagging muscle group that happens to be a smaller muscle like your bicep or your shoulders, then that is fine as well. And because they're also smaller muscle groups, they seem to recover relatively quickly. So what this might look like for hamstrings is that, let's say you have your chest, your quad, and your hamstrings are going to be prioritization muscles. So you're going to have 6 to 10 sets per week for those muscles, while every other set is going to be 6 or 4 sets. It's going to be something around maintenance level. This is how you would optimize your training to make the most growth, because instead of trying to be a jack of all trades and master of none, you focus on what you want to improve, and for that phase of time, that phase of your programming, you improve those muscle group in strength and in size. And then if you want to bring up another muscle group, then you prioritize that in your next programming. The last and most technical bodybuilding technique that bodybuilders use when training is called tempo. And tempo splits up a lift into 4 sections: the way up, the top, the way down, and the bottom. And by the top, I mean the peak contraction. If you're doing a press, it's the very top. The way down is the eccentric, and at the very bottom is the deep stretch for the muscle, which has been shown to grow more muscle. Bodybuilders generally emphasize that part of the range of motion, the way down and the bottom. The ideal tempo is a 4-second on the way down, a 2-second pause, and then a 1 to 2 second press, and a 1 to 0 second at the top. In general, you don't want to hold the top because it's just a waste of energy. Now, this isn't an exact science, so you don't have to literally get 4 seconds on the way down, 2 seconds on the pause, but it's an approximation, so it's kind of the framework you want to go with, the idea of the ideal rep, which can help you perform each set and rep with optimal form for muscle growth. In summary, I'm going to pick 1 to 2 hamstring exercises to have my program. I'm going to use the proper tempo that emphasizes the stretch, range of motion. I'm going to have my hamstring be one of the muscles that I prioritize, and that's how you can grow large, massive, jacked hamstrings. The hamstring is only one of 3 large muscles in the leg. One of the largest muscles in the leg is the quad. To learn the best exercises to grow your quads and the best techniques, most optimal amount of sets to grow your quad, which is one of the largest muscles in the body, watch this video here. In this video, I'll teach you exactly how to do that. And in this video, I'll show you how to program your quads for growth and how you can optimize everything from your technique, your sets, your reps, and your exercises so that you can grow larger quads.